Hi and welcome back. Today I'm going to be assembling the basic carcass of the Nuremberg box. I wanted to end this series by showing you how to assemble the box and the steps involved in that process, but I actually don't want the box completed right now because I'm going to be decorating the outside of this in a later video. So I'm going to need to have the box accessible by not having a bottom to the box, and I need the lid to be removable. So even though I can't do all the final assembly today, I can still show you how the whole thing goes together, because anything that I do later on is basically just going to be adding ornamentation to this box, and I'll just simply be using this box as a starting point for that video. Here I've cut out all the pieces that I'm going to need to assemble the box. These thin strips are the trim pieces that I'm going to use to wrap around the corners of the box. And the larger strips on the left are going to be used to make up the main body of the box. The scribe lines that you see on each one of these pieces is where I need to make a 90-degree bend. The trim pieces get bent down the center of each piece, and the main body panels get a 90-degree bend along the top edge. Of course, if you have a bending brake, this isn't going to be a problem, but I don't happen to have one, so what I'm demonstrating today is how you can make nice, crisp, clean bends in heavy gauge sheet metal using only hand tools. Before the invention of the bending brake, smiths used to drive a narrow fuller into the surface of a plate to create a line that would break the surface of the plate and create a weak spot where the plate would want to bend. And this is exactly the same process that you would use if you're bending, heavy cardstock or cardboard into a nice crisp corner. For larger pieces, you need to set this up on an anvil, but fortunately all of these pieces will fit in my vise. I'll be clamping the piece that I need to bend along with this heavy block that I'm going to use as a backer. And then once I get the scribe line lined up with the top of the vise jaws, I'll be able to use the vise jaws as a straight edge. This really speeds up the process because you don't have to be trying to follow along as you're fullering. You just get the line set up and start hammering. Now I'm only going to be scribing a relatively short line here because I've never really noticed before, but the top of my vise jaws aren't actually flat, they're curved. So if I use the full width of my vise jaws, I wouldn't be scribing a straight line, I'd be scribing a series of curves. So I'm just going to take a series of short runs. It actually doesn't take that long. You'll notice that as I start fullering, the top of the plate just naturally wants to bend in the direction that I'm going in. And once you have the line scored, it's just a matter of clamping the top edge in the vise and taking a large hammer with a flat face and driving the plate over into a 90-degree angle. For short plates that fit inside the vise jaws, you can bend this whole angle in one shot. For longer plates, you're going to need to bend each section a little bit at a time. Here you can see how the end that wasn't supported by the vise is distorted slightly. So you want to minimize the amount of stretching that's going on here because that will distort the bend. So here's one of the sides bent, and this is how that top rim fits around the frame that we made earlier. Here I'm starting to work on one of the long sides of the box. It's exactly the same process, it just takes a couple more steps to get through the whole length. I'm going to start by fitting the back panel for the box because I need to make some cutouts to fit around the hinge blocks. I'm just going to use a marker to lay out the basic outline of the notches that I need to cut out. I'll be working inside those lines and I'll be filing the edges to get a tight fit to the hinge blocks. And here once again I'm drilling out most of the waste, and then I'm using a cold chisel to break away the insides. And here I'm a little bit further along. You can see how I have a miter cut into the corner, and the back panel gets attached to the top frame with a rivet. You can see it just at the corner of the vise. Here again I've got the rivet head counterbored into the surface of the plate so I can file away the surface and the rivet will disappear. And the large cutouts that I needed to make to get the back panel to fit around the hinge blocks isn't going to be a problem because that will eventually be covered by another piece of trim. Now that I have the back panel riveted to the top frame, I'm just going to use the same process and work my way around to fit the other panels. I'm going to be using the same process to attach the corners of the box, only this time I'm not going to be able to use my vise setup that I had earlier. I need to be able to reach inside the box to rivet the sides. So I've set up a heavy bolt header that I have. This one has a lip along the top edge, and that should help to keep it straight in the vise. But any heavy bar will work as long as it can reach inside the box and create an anvil surface to support the rivet while you're creating the head. Now that I have the sides of the box assembled, I'm ready to move on to the lid of the box. And this is the setup that I'm using to get the location for the lid of the box. I have everything clamped together and I just tapped everything from one side to the other until I got the key to work properly. Then I clamped the lid of the box tightly in position and moved the whole thing over to the drill press so I can drill the rivet holes. And then at that point it's just standard riveting. I'm only using 2 rivets right now to hold everything together. Later on I'll be adding more trim pieces, and the rivets that I use to hold those will also be clamping through all of these layers, so that will fully secure the lid to the lock plate. From here I just drilled out the hinge blocks and set the lid in place with some temporary pins. So there you have it, a simple Nuremberg box. It's looking pretty plain right now, but as I mentioned earlier, I'll be dressing it up later with some either etching or engraving. I haven't decided which. And I'll probably be adding some decorative handles to the side, so that'll be in an upcoming video. We'll see you next time. Hi, I'm Dennis, and thanks for watching. If you have questions and you want to contact me directly, you can do so by emailing me at either one of the addresses that I have listed here. It may take me a couple of days, but I will get back to you. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.